welcome to another episode of the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. My name is Brian Vitale. We've got the usual crew here with me today. We have Josh Torres.
Hi. Hello.
Adam Vitale.
Hello.
James Galizio.
Hey, folks.
And Chow Min Woo.
How's it going?
So welcome back, Adam. We missed you last week. We have kind of an interesting podcast in terms of placement because obviously we got all the New Year stuff out from under us. We're looking ahead at February, as we've brought up several times. A lot of us, and not really a secret, are preparing for February. Lots of things we can't talk about yet. We have a few things to talk about that came out in January. One of the ones came out a little over a week ago, Tales of Grace's F Remaster. Obviously, we talked about our review up on the site. We kind of talked about it in passing. Josh, Chow's memories of the game back when it came out on PS3 or on Wii in Chow's case. And Adam actually, for the podcast presence, played through that game, the remastered version. So we'll kind of dip in back to Tales of Grace's F at least one more time, just so Adam can talk about his firsthand experience with that game, both having played the original worldwide release and the remaster. We'll go into a few other January releases. Obviously, we talked about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is released on PC. We'll have some direct impressions on that, both here on the podcast and on the site. We have a review for Ender Magnolia, Bloom of the Mist. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll look ahead to, of course, February. And we have a lot more dates going into April and May, filling out the calendar pretty quickly. So we're already kind of getting our schedules all set. So that's kind of where we're at for this episode of the podcast. And obviously, as embargoes release, we'll be able to talk about games like Kingdom Come 2 and Yakuza Hawaii and Monster Hunter and all those other things. A lot of those have already had like avowed preview, access. We've previewed some of those, not all of those. Other sites have previewed avowed more recently than we have, things like that. But we'll go ahead and to talk about released games. And we'll start out just with the capping off the conversation about the recently released Tales of Grace's F Remastered, leading it over to Adam. Now, Adam, you weren't present last week, but you did actually edit last week's podcast, so you kind of heard our discussion. So you can kind of know like what we were able to talk on and touch up without your direct input about what you had played. So here's like maybe not go full in depth, but like your final thoughts on the remaster as you played through it.
Yeah, so the first thing I'll say is that the remaster is not like super fancy in terms of a bunch of like graphical settings and options and bells and whistles and things like that. But I'm totally fine with that. I just having it be playable, having this game playable on modern consoles and PC specifically, and it runs really well, is kind of like enough for me. I know there was some chatter last week about maybe some issues with like dialogue syncing or maybe some stutter. I actually went back after listening to it to check to be more maybe higher scrutiny on what I was playing, and for me, I don't really see that. So I don't know if it's certain configurations or whatnot. But basically, like, for me, this was Tales of Grace's F, playing it at 4K, 120 FPS, super snappy load screens, like in and out of battle. Everything's so quick and fast, which suits the type of game it is pretty well. It's like, that's exactly what I wanted the port to be, and it's what it is. So I have, like, no major issues whatsoever. It looks like a Wii game at times, because that's what it was, in terms of, like, textures and models and things like that. But I also kind of have a weird sort of nostalgia for that look. It's like, actually, this is maybe kind of a boomer take, but some of the dialogue in that game is just like the models just standing there and like little speech bubbles popping above their heads, really simple stuff. Like that's like there are cut scenes, but there are a lot of scenes that are just like the models talking and then there's like a speech bubbles and some canned animations. I actually kind of like that style. It kind of feels old school, and it's also kind of like quicker than something more recent, like Tales of Arise being the most recent game, where everything is more like a slower type of cut scene, where it kind of slows down some of the dialogue a little bit. But anyways, that's just a kind of a personal take.
Of course, it's like a major step up from like like the remaster efforts. Like there's a big step up from like when they first released Tales of Symphonia on PC versus now.
Yeah,
and they're releasing legacy titles again.
Yeah, the Symphonia remaster is weird. It was like the PS3 one. Not to just small tangent. Came out on PS3 like 12 years ago or whatever it was, maybe longer than that. And it had the it was basically it was cool at the time because it was bringing out the PS2 content for the first time in the West, but also like the GameCube version of the game ran at 60 frames per second, and even the remaster just ran at 30. And that's just what it was. Even on no matter what, and even when it came out for PC, it was still 30. I know there are like mods to try to fix that. I don't even know the current state of that. I do remember seeing some very amusing videos, people trying to mod the PC version back then, trying to get it to run better, and it never really worked. I specifically remember seeing a video like, here's Tales of Symphonia running at 120 frames per second, and like literally, sorry, I'm laughing here, but Lloyd's legs look like Sonic legs. They're just like rotating.
Yeah, I don't think the modding team ever figured out like how to get that game running in 60 without breaking the game logic or anything.
Right. Anyways, so yeah, this remaster is a very good remaster in my opinion. I know Cullen on the site, one of our site contributors, he actually played the Switch version for Nintendo Insider. Now, the Switch version seems to be only 30 FPS, obviously lower resolution, and maybe it's kind of like it's playable, but it is what it is. So, if you're hoping to play this portably on Switch, there's some concessions to be made.
Well, one would hope that like hopefully these titles that they had to make like they had to compromise on the Switch version will at least get patches for the Switch 2 version to get hopefully them better running.
And I know our reviewer on the site, Paul Scully, he played the PS5 version, which seems like it's a really, really good version also. He mentioned no load times. I don't know about frame rate, but like no load times. It's one of those sorts of games where there are like tips in the load menus, but you can't really read them because it just loads too fast. That's always fun.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's one of the things that we lost in the process of just trying to cut down loading times. It's like you can't read the loading tips anymore. It's like 0.5 seconds and it's gone.
I've long held that Tales of Graces is one of the best combat systems in the series, and that's not a unique opinion. Many people think that. And like when I started playing this game, like excluding the early childhood stuff, which is sort of like training wheels section of combat, like the combat is really good, but by the time I got to like the latter half of the game again, it's almost like better than I remember. And I think the fact that it's like loading so fast, it's so snappy, running at high frame rates helps there, of course. Some of the later battle musics are really cool, so they're really energetic. Every battle is a blast to play. It's such a fun game to play. Like it's so snappy. It keeps you on your toes because a big portion of the combat system is CC, which you gain more CC by like dodging properly. So you're always like looking for openings to dodge to gain CC to have even longer combos and do more cool shit. It's just so fun to play, highly energetic, and not only the combat systems though. So like when I think about this game, a more recent example that kind of comes to mind in terms of like my stance on it is like Ys 10, where I really like the combat of this game more than anything else in the game, and that's the reason to play it, in my opinion, is combat. But one thing I think Graces does better than games like Ys 10 is I think, and this is actually very important, a lot of like the subsystems or the supporting mechanics they just work so well together. There's a really high level of synergy there in terms of how the titles work, how the LF mixer works, even stuff like how the game's like structure and questing and characters work. I think it's got one of the best title systems in the series. And how it ties into the side quests, how it improves your character's abilities and their stats and what they can do. It's just really cool. It works really well. Like I think it's still now one of the best in the series in that regard, and one of the best action RPGs in that regard, really overall.
I forgot for Graces F. Was there how was the missable situation? I totally forgot. This was like a game that like you had to follow a guide because there's so many missables.
Yeah. If you played Tales of Vesperia or really any Tales before then, but Vesperia is kind of like the big example, you pretty much have to follow like here is your missables guide. It is 30 pages long, literally. Well, not it's dozens of pages
trails
long.
look like a cakewalk. Trust me on that.
And like even if you follow it, if you don't do something quite right, you might miss like this dialogue won't flag, and you're gonna miss this spear, the whatever for Judith.
Strongest spear that got sold to a merchant.
Yeah. So that game is pretty notorious, and I feel like that game was actually probably a turning point for the Tale studio. Like, we can't do this again. Grace's, I was playing through it. I think there are only 2 missables. They're relatively significant in that like one leads to like a special weapon and one leads to I don't know, like an equipment or something. And the thing is they're relatively lenient. It's like you better do this thing before the final dungeon, and you have a long time to do it. But if you don't do it before the final dungeon, it's technically missable. So it's a lot better. There's like 2 things.
It's a far cry from, all right, you triggered a cutscene in this city.
Walk
now
back 3
you would
cities.
naturally just go. Yeah, you would naturally just go down the hallway to the end. But before you do that, walk back 10 miles and talk to this random person that just showed up that you would have no idea to expect is there.
Our Ocean 2.
Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah. So yeah,
So it's not. So it's just a small few things, literally like 2 things, and they're both like the cutoff is the final dungeon.
And also another question for you, Adam, because unlike the previous release of Grace's F, at the beginning of the game, the grade shop is open to you. They give you a bunch of grade to spend on what you want to do to like modify the game. Did you do any of the ones that like enhance combat? Because I think like at least for people returning to the game, like there's definitely some modifiers the grade shop that you had to unlock previously by beating the game once. You can now unlock right away to kind of give you more resources in combat to kind of make it more dynamic and fun.
Yeah, we've seen this
more things to play around.
And we've seen this with other remasters. Like I think of like some of the Final Fantasy ports had like cheat systems built in, where it's like, yeah, you can just turn on no encounters or just turn on turbo mode or god mode or whatever. This game doesn't quite have that, but it basically does unlock the grade shop right at the very beginning. How it works is you can basically just buy everything, or it's not everything. It's like a subset of options at the very beginning, and things like double experience, 10 times experience, 2 times SP, 3 times SP, and those do stack. The thing is once you unlock them at the beginning, you do have the option to turn them off during gameplay. So like, it's not like if you click 10 times EXP or 2 times and 5 times, you're stuck with that forever. You can turn it off. Same thing with like the SP and others and some other options. It gives you like the toggle that you can use. Having been replaying this game, I just like, screw it. I'm going broken mode, just everything up all the way. And it's actually kind of, it's not, so one of the great options is 2 times damage and 5 times damage. So, and they stack. So like you do 10 times damage, but then everything does 10 times damage to you. And that's going to outpace the 10 times EXP. Like I was playing with that for a second, and there were a couple of bosses there where it's just like, I cannot get hit once or I'm dead because it's a 1-hit kill. Now I was doing a bunch of damage too. So it's like, I just got to survive for 10 seconds and I can beat this boss. But it was, it was basically glass cannon mode. Like I'm going to die, but they're going to die first. And of course you can toggle that on and off, and it's not like properly balanced, because of course it's not, but it's there. Now, in terms of what you were saying, Josh, about like enhancing the gameplay, 2 of the grade shop options are +1 CC always and +2 CC always, and they stack. So basically you just get a global bonus +3 CC at all times. So that's, for those who aren't aware, the more CC you have, the more combos you can do, like the more skills you can chain together. So you can basically do longer combos from the get-go. So that's, does it affect the balance of the game? Sure, I guess. But the game does actually have pretty good difficulty options. It has normal mode, moderate mode, hard mode, evil mode, chaos mode. So you can definitely ratchet it up, where +2...
Why is very hard called evil mode? That makes me think of like, I don't know, like a gimmick mode where you
play as the bad guys.
Because it's awesome.
But yeah, you can always ratchet it up, where that +3 CC isn't going to not going to help that much. And also even the higher EXP gain you get, it kind of offsets that. But
I was gonna say, I was trying to remember, do you get any titles for beating certain bosses in like chaos mode or something? Because I remember that was some of the thing that you would do in the Tales of Destiny remake. And I was trying to fight this one boss in chaos mode, just kept dying nonstop.
The final boss has an achievement for beating it on chaos, which I did, but that's it.
You did the whole thing. Like you got
played the whole thing.
all the titles.
I got everything.
Yeah, that's
As
not easy.
you do.
For some titles, it takes a long time.
Most of the achievements are actually, I think, pretty reasonable. But this game came out in 2012 or whatever originally on PS3, and that was like only a couple of years into PlayStation getting trophies, I think. So some of those early trophy things are always kind of weird. I think publishers and developers have gotten better at this. One of the trophies, which is easily the worst one, but I did it anyways because I was like, fuck it, I'm going to do it, is max out your LF mixer. Your LF mixer, which is how you create, it's how you do the cooking, it's how you do crafting, it's how you do various things. It maxes out at 9999 like units. If you play the game normally, even if you like do a lot of battles, you're probably going to end up at like 4,000, not 10,000. So it's like, all right, gotta just grind that up all the way. Takes several hours to do on its own.
I mean, just listen to this podcast while while grinding that out. There you go.
It's clear. They're like, that's the one achievement that's dumb. And I guess I should mention, and this is sort of implied.
I used to really be a PlayStation gamer. There was definitely some RPGs I had to like put on fucking podcasts for to grind out trophies.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those trophies, and I kind of implied this, but if it wasn't clear, the trophies in this version, if you're like an achievement person, they're exactly the same as the original version. No differences. They're exactly the same. So that's what they are. So reading Paul's review of this game, he finds the characters kind of likable and kind of fun. And a lot of people, or maybe not a lot, but there are people who have that opinion where they think the characters are kind of fun and silly and likable. And I get that. But even replaying through this game, I've never really liked the cast or the story of this game. And even now, trying to go through it again with like, an open mind, I'm like, no, this isn't working for me. It's one of those games, and I've said this before, I feel like if you kind of approach it and you don't take the story too seriously, like, okay, things are just going to be kind of goofy and kind of stupid, and treat it like a comedy, kind of. I've said that before. I think you'll enjoy it more. But if you try to take like the drama seriously and the character arc seriously and whatnot, I kind of feel like it falls a bit through the cracks, where it's just like, this isn't really believable. You spend about half, not to spoil it, and I know it's an old game, but you spend like half the game on like a goose chase to the ley lines or whatever they're called, the Krayas ley lines, and you're chasing around Richard, who is sort of an antagonist, not to spoil it too much, but there's something clearly wrong with Richard, and he'll be saying stuff like, how dare you defy me? Everyone should listen to me. I'm the king of Windor. And then Aspel is like, Richard's having a bad day. And it's kind of just goofy. And it's just like, it takes the cast too long to realize that something's up. And it's just kind of silly. And on paper, I think there are some good things about like Sophie, who's one of the main characters, and the villain character who's Lambda. But still, I just think the actual like portrayal of the narrative is just it's too silly for me. It's kind of too it's too cartoony, maybe. Just don't take it too seriously, and you can enjoy it. It is fun. Like there's the scene when Pascal first meets Sophie, and I don't know if you remember this. Pascal is like obsessed with Sophie. Pascal's another one of the characters, and she's just like, I want to touch you, and then Sophie basically does like a Kamehameha, and Pascal goes blasting off again into space, that sort of thing. So there's some goofy stuff
like Saturday morning cartoon like stuff.
Yeah, and it does try
to be also
serious.
Dramatic.
Yeah, but and you might enjoy it. I'm not trying to be too like sour, like this sucks and how dare you like it. It's just like not really my thing.
And you also have like a bunch of ways to like kind of change the look of the characters, because it's bundling all the DLC.
Oh yeah,
for, like,
all the DLC is there.
Except for the third-party licensed stuff that they had, like Idol Master and Code Geass. Other than those, this has like you just have a whole bunch of everything basically, right? So aside from costumes, I guess they also gave you like consumables that were DLC.
Oh yeah, like if you played the Tales games, you know like what a red saffron and a red lavender are. You get like 20 of those stat items. You get money. You get gel sets. Just the usual DLC stuff, but all included. I think there are actually let me go to the Steam page real quick. I think there even still are like more like I don't. So I had a review code, and I'm pretty sure the DLC I got was just included normally, like not a DLC, not like a reviewer special package, which sometimes we do get. But I think there's even more DLCs. 1 second, that you can buy in typical kind of JRPG fashion.
Like you can actually just buy level ups. Yep.
Okay. Oh, so I'm looking at them now. It looks like it's the level up mostly. Level up plus 5, plus 5, plus 5, plus 5, plus 10, plus 10.
Yeah, there's also a deluxe. I guess a deluxe upgrade pack has battle BGMs, digital art book soundtrack, and then.
Do I have the? Maybe I got the deluxe version that had like the digital art book, but I definitely did not have the level ups. But still, yeah, that's whatever. Yeah, a lot of these games have that.
I mean, do you really need the level ups when you have the grade shop stuff?
No
modifiers.
You get the 10 times EXP, and once you get to like the post game, like by the time you get to the end of the game with 10 times EXP, you actually are gonna like max out around 100. Now the max level is actually 200 in this game, but go into the post game, you'll reach 200 no problem. Like it's no big deal. But yeah, I still think this is one of the best Tales games. It's a bit lopsided in the ways I like it, but if you played like more recent games like Berseria or Arise, and I think Arise has a pretty good combat system outside of its bosses, because it does have like CC and titles and similar things to Graces, but even so, if you played like Berseria, the Symphonia Remaster, Arise, or even Zillia's, or more recent games, I know Zillia's not that recent anymore, but you haven't played Graces and you're like, I don't really like Tales battle systems, try Graces. Just try it.
I wonder. I feel like it's inevitable that they are eventually going to get to Zillia, because it followed Grace's F, and I imagine they definitely want to get.
It's similar time frame. I think Zillia came out a little after. So,
but I wonder if they're gonna, because it's one of the few Tales games where it has like 2 direct entries that are linked to each other. It's like the sequel directly follows up from the first game. It's not like its own separate thing.
You would think they would do a dual pack.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like,
the weird part is Symphonia, they did do a dual pack with its sequel. Which its sequel, I think, has some bright spots, but I don't think it's a very good game overall. Like the PS3 version is kind of a remaster of both the Symphonia games, but when it came to PC, it was just the first game only, and when it came to other platforms, it was just the first game only.
There's this weird like memory thing that I have about like the Dawn of the World, like Dawn of the New World, like was originally gonna like be planned to be released on PC, but they had to like meet some sort of like sales or threshold on Steam, because there was like a weird state back then when they released Tales of Symphonia on PC, they had this whole campaign of like, hey, the more it sells, the more it'll like we'll add on to this, or the more we'll do.
I remember that.
But this was never cataloged or recorded or like in an article anywhere. Like I feel like I tried to look for this article or anything that like cataloged this, but no one ever mentioned it. I'm like, am I fooling myself? I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure this was a thing. And I feel like I'm like the only person who remembers this on Earth. And I don't know what to do.
This isn't quite the same, but do you remember that era where it was like pre-order Dragonguard 3 to get the Japanese voices?
Yes.
And if you didn't pre-order it, you don't.
Yep.
And I think that's still the case. If you buy Dragonguard 3 on PlayStation 3 now, it's English voices only.
Yeah.
Remember, there was more than one game that had that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there's plenty actually that had that.
I mean, there was like a 2-year period where for some reason Japanese voice was a pre-order bonus, and it's like, what are you doing?
Well, I think the Atelier game had that thing too, but
there was probably an Atelier game that had it. Well, I mean, Atelier games don't even have English voices anymore, but yeah, that was weird.
Yeah,
I don't remember if Symphonia had like if we get 5,000 reviews on Steam, we'll add Japanese voices. That one
didn't
had
have reviews. They didn't have reviews, but they were, because like it's still released early on that they didn't have Steam reviews, but they were like the only one of like, maybe, I don't know, other titles did it, but they had this weird campaign where like the more we sell of Symphonia on Steam PC, like it was like Kickstarter goals almost. And I'm like,
I vaguely remember this. I don't think you're crazy.
Oh my god, that reminds me of that time that Square Enix tried to do that with pre-orders for what was it, Deus Ex: Mankind Divided, and they got so much shit that they stopped it.
Mankind Divided had so much weird stuff with it, with its like
Mm.
advertising, with its breach mode, with its
Didn't
like,
have All Lives
Mhm.
Matter. Did I make that up?
No,
I
that was
think
there.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely remember
Nope.
that. Yeah.
I mean, that was separate, but like
Well, that was like a
at the same
marketing thing where it's
game.
kind of like,
Yeah, part of the marketing. So yeah,
Just
I
what a
almost
weird
forgot about all
fucking time
that.
in video games, man.
And like
Video games are very weird.
they latched on that breach mode to try to get you like your, I don't know what the correct term is, like your Madden Ultimate Team, get like digital trading cards, sort of weird stuff tied to a Deus Ex game. It's like, what are you doing?
I just like
Okay, anyways,
it's
tangent.
also reminding of like another Square Enix Western weird marketing of Western time, but they saw Hitman, and they had like this whole campaign of like which real world person do you want to assassinate, whatever. I'm
Oh
like
yeah.
that's kind of weird.
We didn't notice it at the time, or maybe some of us did, but the 2010s, late 20 aughts were a weird time.
So yeah, wild times.
But Adam, thank you for going through detail of your experience with Tales of Graces and comparing your original and your time with Remaster. Pretty high praise, both from you and Paul. So go ahead and give that one a pick up. And yeah, Cullen, friend of the site, did also review the Switch version on Nintendo Insider if you're interested in that version. But yeah, check it out. The second game we have listed here is not explicitly an RPG, but it's from a development team that we have talked about on the podcast before. Team Ladybug. Is it Team Ladybug?
Yeah,
All right. I forgot it was like Group Ladybug or Crew Ladybug. No, Team
that's too
Ladybug.
later.
Yeah. The name is Blade Chimera. My understanding is that this is like a pixel art Metroidvania type game, but I'll hand the microphone off over to Josh, who has been playing through this. So
Yeah,
we'll tangent away from RPGs for a little bit here to talk about kind of a companion genre. Josh, talk about your time with Blade Chimera, which
I
just
mean,
released not too long ago.
yeah, it's not quite an RPG, but it's very RPG adjacent. I mean, it's the closest comparison for this game is Symphony of the Night. So, for some people, they consider that an RPG. And Blade Chimera definitely is the like when you're thinking about another game that is the closest to it or its direct inspiration, it's Symphony. Um
Mm.
Blade Chimera is an interesting and special title for Team Ladybug because it is the first of their Metroidvania games that is completely original, not tied to an IP. They had Deedlit in Wonderland or Labyrinth, I forgot what it's called, but obviously that's tied to Record of Lotto Store. You had the SMT Synchronicity, obviously tied to the SMT series. That was a weird one because that was never officially released as its own title. It was like a kind of like a freeware title that was part of like some marketing campaign for I think Strange Journey. I don't remember exactly which SMT title. It's either Strange Journey or 4. Um, then there was another Toho Luna Nights, which is probably their most popular Metroidvania title. Um, Out of those, and but Blade Chimera is a totally new original IP. They had a previous new original title, which is Drainus, but that was a shmup and not a Metroidvania. So Blade Chimera is pretty interesting in the sense that it's a brand new original thing, very reminiscent of Symphony of the Night. You play this demon hunter named Shin, and very early on, aside from his starter gun pistol weapon, he gains this demonic weapon named Lux, and Lux is basically a floating sword that's not only used for combat but platforming as well. In this game, you have an HP and MP meter, and when you're using Lux, it'll use your MP. And Lux can not only be used to um, fling the Lux sword at enemies and make her spin around in the air to do damage, but also when you're jumping towards a wall, if you deploy Lux right when you're about to at that wall, you'll actually stand on top of that on Lux to gain higher elevation. So, like, if you want to get up a high wall, you usually have to jump towards the wall, deploy Lux, then you're standing on Lux, your floating sword that's implanted into the wall, then jump off of that to get onto the platform. Um, Other uses for Lux is aside from when you deploy Lux and then she's spinning in the air, um, during that spin, it acts as like a shield barrier as well. So if there's projectiles coming at you, that spin will actually negate those. You can also implant Lux into the ground to form a barrier, a shield around you. So if there's an enemy that like shoots like fast projectiles at you, usually you'll want to like implant Lux into the ground to make that barrier, and then maybe use like your projectile ranged weapon to attack them safely from afar.
Are these abilities you like start out with, or you tier them up through some sort of like skill progression, or is it just kind of like
Some of them are
this is your kit?
most of them are like your starter ones. So like when you get
Mm.
Lux, I think like you've by that point you'll level up in this game and you'll gain skill points. So like your first like 2 or 3 starter skill points that you'll already unlock this ability for her to like fling and stay in the air and whatnot. The thing is that this game it's kind of it's very easy, I guess, is the best way to put it. In the sense that, like, once you realize that your weapons, whether you have because you have two weapons that you can equip at any time. You can choose between like equipping both range or equipping both melee or one ranged, one melee. It's very versatile. You're not locked into one ranged, one melee slot on your both of the weapons that you can carry, so you can freely swap them out. But you can attack simultaneously as Lux is deployed because the default control scheme of this game will make you think, man, you really have to choose between using your primary and secondary weapon or deploying Lux, and you would think by the default control scheme that's the case where you have to choose between them. But if you just bind Lux to like say R1 for example, you can hold R1 and she'll simultaneously attack as you're playing or using your primary and secondary weapons. So you can actually attack in tandem because like the default control scheme has Lux on circle. So trying to hold circle while pressing square or triangle, is not optimal, or rather it'd be difficult. So if you just like mess around with the control scheme a little bit because everything's rebindable, then you could find yourself in a situation where like you're just kind of steamrolling enemies because you have Lux spinning inside like an enemy's hitbox that effectively negates any projectiles that they're coming out of because the spin acts as a shield, and also while you're attacking, you're just doing a lot of damage as Lux is attacking, and because Lux comes back to you after that spin, it actually has a hitbox. So the longer your sword is out and then you retrieve it, the more damage it'll be done upon retrieval. So you can actually hit enemies for a lot of damage on the way back when you're retrieving Lux from that attack animation.
Not quite the same, but is it like conceptually similar to having the pod shooting in Nier Automata while you're doing your combos?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, obviously that pod is more for like utility rather than like damage, but
Think of
kind of
that
like you
like,
can just
yeah,
keep it shooting.
if you can fling 2B's pod as you're attacking, and that pod starts spinning and does damage and negating projectiles coming at you, and then does a bunch of damage on the way back, then that's pretty much like,
Then sure, yeah.
yeah. Think of it like that, then yeah. But so you have like Lux is kind of the heart and soul of this game too, because as I'm telling you, it's both a combat and a platforming tool. Very very effective once you're starting to um, mix it together with your primary attack patterns. But there's also interesting platforming elements that you have to think about when you start getting to these rooms on the map where it'll have like UV radiation, and Lux tells you I can't go in those zones. Um, like Lux will actually start taking damage if you go into those zones. Haven't actually tried what happens if you let her bar deplete in those, but you definitely don't want to have Lux on you when you're in those zones. So, but when you retrieve Lux, you can go through walls. So what you basically have to do is like implant Lux into the ground and then go into those zones and navigate towards them to a zone, to an area of the room that doesn't have UV radiation, and then you can retrieve Lux and she'll go through the wall, not into those zones. And that's where like some of the more interesting elements lie, and like the platforming stuff. Where like, oh, there'll be some times where I can't have Lux on me because there are these zones that force me to not have her on me. There are also some context sensitive things on the map where there are like silhouettes of objects that you have to like use Lux on, because Lux can also kind of rewind the time of an object. So let's say there's like a gap and there's like broken debris on the ground that used to be a bridge. So what you'll have to do is get like the broken debris through Lux. So there's like you just have to deploy Lux onto that like context sensitive button uh in the room, and then it'll start gradually reconstructing the bridge, because all that debris used to be once be a bridge. So it kind of has like this kind of weird desyncing thing where you start deploying Lux and you have to platform your way up into that section where it formed a bridge, but you can't let go of like you can't like retrieve Lux at any point in time, because it'll start obviously deconstructing the bridge right away. So you have to find ways to kind of platform your way up into the section where Lux is, and then once you've crossed that bridge, then you can retrieve Lux and go.
No, that makes sense. Like you got
Yeah.
to time the as it rewinds time. I
Yeah.
don't know the better term for something like that. You got to time your own positioning so that you navigate through.
Right. But I think one of the weirdest things about this game is usually in like in a Metroidvania game, your fast travel options don't really open up till later on in the game. Especially with like the like fast travel options like to any tile in the map. That's usually something you get way later in the game. So you can like start like backtracking to like things that that now that you have
You
more
couldn't access
navigational
before.
abilities,
Yeah.
yeah, you can access before. This one, you can get that fast travel ability very early on. Like I'm talking like first maybe I don't know 2 hours or something. Because it's just getting some skill points, and then it's like a 3 skill point thing that you can nab almost right away. So very early on in the game, you'll just kind of get the ability to um just open up the map, and to any tile that you visited on your map, you can just instantly warp there right away. And you can do this like pretty much at any time outside of like the only time that like you're restricted from this is when you're like in the HQ of like the Holy Union that Shin works for. And that is kind of like more of like a story centric zone where you talk to NPCs, go to a shop. Usually the bulk of like the story happens there. Is like you're receiving missions from there and whatnot. But other than that, even like if you're in the middle of combat, and you're in a tough situation, you can just like just pause, go to your map, and go to like a save point, like warp to a save point, get refilled right away, and then warp right back to where you were. And it's kind of like a weird situation because it feels like there's not really any threat, and you're also just you can kind of just go wherever in an instant. You don't have to worry about like certain rooms anymore. Like for example, like hey, there's like an annoying room that like I just have to get through once, and I never have to think about going through that room again because there's no alternate ways to get out of it, and there's no reason for me to ever like make a trek to places anymore on foot. Once you get that ability, you can just like instantly warp wherever.
Kind
Which
of
is good
reminds
and
me.
bad.
I need to refresh my memory a bit, but like Dark Souls 1, I'm getting somewhere with this, I'm
Uh-oh.
sorry. Like, had like, the bonfires were very deliberately placed where that, like, you didn't always have a bonfire right outside the boss door, and if I remember right, some of them you couldn't even fast travel to, you could only fast travel to certain ones, I don't quite remember. But then I feel like as more of those games come out, it was always like, "Oh, I struggled through this gauntlet, but now there's a fast travel point on both sides of it, so I will never have to do it again." Which kind of like, in a way, you kind of like it because you're like, all right, I've already overcome that. Don't make me overcome it again. But maybe in a Metroidvania, it's just kind of like, well, now I never, if I never engage with it, it almost feels like it's too convenient. Like it's not inconveniencing me enough.
At least weird situations where very early on, for instance, when I was getting like to the next, like maybe the third story beat in the game, and I before it gives you like an icon on the map of like where your story destination is, So for me, I like, obviously exploring other places before I get to the next story thing, and basically I exhaust the map to the point where like, okay, I can't really go anywhere else until to that story thing. So I go to the next story beat, and they're like, okay, go make your way here to meet up with this NPC. Where I'm like, okay, well, I already unlocked this fast travel ability, so as soon as I get that, I just open up the map and instantly fast travel to that story NPC. Like, because I already explored over there before. So it's kind of like a weird situation. It's like there's definitely going to be some areas, obviously, where you're story gated and like there's new and you have to navigate through it. But but for some sections, you're just like, okay, I already explored over there before. I don't have to like make my way over there. I think that's just like for me, that's a weird feeling because for me, when playing through Metroidvanias, I'm used to like making the journey on foot and like and getting to understand like the some rooms and the enemy layouts of rooms and what's the most efficient way to travel through rooms all together and without having to like fast travel through them. Um,
It's a
so it's
tough
kind of
balance because
yeah.
I remember when I was playing through like Dragon Age Veilguard, you'd try to explore a map and you're like, how in the world do I get through this like thing? Like I don't see a way through. And then you realize, oh, I just needed a way for the story to unlock it. Like there's some arbitrary thing that doesn't happen until you hit the correct story check mark and then it's gone or whatever. But also it's a little bit frustrating to be like, well, I fully explored everything. Now I'm just going through the motions. When I was told to meet up someone somewhere, I could instantly meet up with them, and it could have just been a cutscene.
Well, I kind of get what Josh is saying too, I think, where sometimes having a little bit of backtracking and realizing, I've been on this path before, isn't necessarily a bad thing. Where it's
Right.
like, I'm going through this room again, and like,
But
now
now
I've gone through
my
this
kid
room
is
3
improved or
times,
whatever.
maybe 4 times, that like, I've mastered this room. Whereas with this fast travel system, you like go through a room once and potentially never need to touch it again. So
Yeah.
Mm.
And it's also very weird in the sense that like let's say there's a room that has like an upper portion of it because there's some goodies up there, right? And there's some like grappling hook points that you can use Lux on there. So like for this room, I was like, okay, I'm not really sure how to get up there, but I was able to like at least like get enough height to like perceive the room. So since I entered that area technically once, I can fast travel to it. And when you fast travel, you're usually when you warp into a room, you're placed on a heightened place and you're falling down on it. So it became a point of like, okay, so since I've discovered that room, I can fast travel to it, and since I'm falling from a heightened elevation, I can reach that grappling hook now because I can fast travel to it and then get the goodies up there and just and go to the other grappling hook points where it doesn't feel like I like did it the right way. I just like kind of coincidentally like got enough height to like see that room once, and then now I can fast travel to it and kind of cheese it. Um, so I don't really have to like master like any sort of like platforming to it because I can just fast travel to it and as
Mhm.
I'm falling, grapple to it and get the goodie. You know. Um, so it's like a kind of like a weird. I don't know. Like it's definitely a design decision I don't agree with, but I can see why they put it in there. Like in the sense like they feel like they might have been inconveniencing people, if they didn't have it in there. But I feel like it's too either too versatile or either you get it way too early in the game, and then you should get it way later. So I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing.
what
But
is your opinion on Magmore Caverns in Metroid Prime?
uh
That one, I think you kind of go through probably too many times, but
yeah. I still remember. I thought when you mentioned like still remember it.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
remember the details, but I remember being like, "Oh, I gotta go there," which means there's
you
no
gotta go through the
A
caverns
to C
again.
here. I gotta go.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotta go to the caverns this way. Oh no, I
yeah,
gotta go back the other way.
yeah. So it's a tough balancing act. Other than that, Blade Chimera exhibits what Team Ladybug is really good at presentation wise. Very very crisp, fluid pixel art. Um, it's just beautiful to see in motion. All the enemy designs and boss battles have been really fun. But like I said, because once you discover that you can still attack with your primary weapons and secondary weapon while Lux isn't there, it kind of breaks kind of maybe the design of the game where like I don't know if they intended it or not, but it just everything feels too easy. I know like there's like gonna be new. There's some new options for more challenging difficulty modifiers after you complete the game once. But it's just like, I'm not saying I was expecting like a highly demanding, like, hard game, but it's just like, man, there's like a lot of like probably unintentional design issues that kind of either mitigate or trivialize the game a little bit too much. But it's still a fun time to kind of just like explore and like beat up monsters and level up and gain like new navigational abilities, like a slide to go under narrow like corridor ways, or get an air dash and stuff like that to kind of open up your other navigation options, and all that stuff is like fine and dandy. But it's one of those things. It's like it could have probably been tightened up better, like design wise, in the sense of like the whole progression of the game, it feels like you're unintentionally breaking it, even though you're like you don't mean to. But it's just like it just happens to, like, once you find out this one weird trick of control binding, you're just like, whoa, what is going on? And because when you're also deploying Lux and doing her attack on retrieval, the longer you have her out, you'll regain MP recovery and HP recovery depending on like some like accessories that you have. So you can actually kind of just spam it too without any sort of repercussion. And even if you decide to equip an accessory that doesn't have MP or HP recovery, you can still fast travel immediately to a fast travel point, to a save point, and immediately gain your resources in a second, and then go fast travel back to where you were at. So there's like a lot of things about the game that just like it kind of, the cadence of it is very off-putting, and you're just kind of have to accept it for how it's designed, I guess. Um, because trying to
There's such
play,
a thing as too easy breezy almost.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I'm still. Uh, it's okay. It's okay. I'm not gonna say it's definitely not a bad game.
Mhm.
But it's definitely not what I was expecting. But that's, it's okay to have like kind of just an easier one of these.
I was thinking about picking up on a sale, but
Yeah.
I read like the first thing on the Steam review, and people find it's like the most helpful is about the fast travel system. They complain it's like a huge design flaw. The first thing
Yeah,
about
I
the
just
game.
I just don't understand why they open it up so fast. It's just like they like it feels like nothing matters in exploration, because you can just like easily get through stuff once, even if there's like rooms that like you don't like traversing through, and you find them a slog. Like you can just kind of just cheese it by like taking damage, and then during that invulnerability period before you can get hit again, you can just like run through enemies, and get to the next room, and then you never have to worry about that room ever again, because you can just fast travel through it. It's just, I don't know. It's a weird decision. It's a weird decision.
Well, thank you, Josh, for going on a tangent and talking about Blade Chimera. Of course, just recently released. Is it only available on Steam, or is it available on consoles as
I
well?
I
believe it's
believe
on
it's on Switch.
Switch. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Blade Chimera available Steam or Switch. Team
Mhm.
Ladybug. There you go. And then for the last game that we'll talk about here, Chow has picked up Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which just recently released on PC. Now, Chow, I know that you've just started, you're only a few hours in, but I think for the PC release, people are just curious about impressions of how it ran. Oh, did you play the console version of this game, or is this your first time
I
playing
beat
it?
the console version. I have a
Okay,
130-hour playtime. I was trying to go for the
I
platinum
thought you did.
trophy, but I kind
But
of gave up.
those brutal challenges and those doing every mini game on hard mode, and there's like 20
Oh no,
mini games.
I completed all the mini games. The mini games is a joke, but
Oh.
the battles was like, you want me to fight all these boss back to back? It's like, what? It's like,
When you
yeah.
have to fight, yeah, and then one of them is a boss with a one-hit kill move, ninth out of 10th battles. That got me like 2 or 3 times. I think Adam was on the receiving end of my venting on that one. But yeah, so Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on PC. Obviously, like, just give us some general impressions about like if this is running well for you. Revisit, I don't know, like the bells and whistles. I saw that Square Enix just like a week ago, like did the trailer about the improved lighting and things like that. But just actually in front of you playing it, what your impressions are of the PC port.
Yeah, it seems to run well on my end. Obviously, there's a lot of like weird choices in this game. Like when you get the game, you cannot set your resolution once you're like in borderless full screen. So you have to go to like window mode to set your resolution, then go full. So that's
Weird.
like I think a lot of people get confused. So they like ask the Steam discussion on how to like change the resolution because you just
No,
can't change
it's
it.
I see that a fair bit. Or if you click borderless full screen, it's like, oh, so you want a 1080p borderless window, right? I'm like, no, I
Yeah,
don't want
I've
that.
definitely seen that before. It's like, oh, it's so annoying when that happens.
That's like the first thing that kind of comes to mind, and then afterwards, like, okay, so the game seems to run fine on me. I only had it on 60 FPS, and I had everything on high.
Before you go into that, like, what are your specs? Like, what hardware are you running this?
I have AMD 5600X, so that's a 6-core processor, not top of the line. I bought one of that for power saving reasons, and then I got what's it, a 7800 XT AMD card. And I kind of regret getting AMD card now because this game has all was it NVIDIA features like the DLSS.
Yeah,
And
I
nothing
heard that
for
the
AMD.
FSR version, is that right, isn't as good, or is it maybe even broken?
It's not even there. I don't think.
Yeah, there's no FSR in Rebirth, though. From what I understand, well, actually, I haven't played the port, so I won't say anything. But like AMD had basically finally caught up with image quality with FSR 4, but now like NVIDIA has just released a new version of DLSS that is radically better. So it's like, well, right back where we started.
Yeah, so go on, Chow. Finish your thoughts on
God,
it.
I always wanted to change my graphics card now, but whatever. It's too late now. So yeah, it runs fine in my end. But obviously I experienced some crashes. Like I was like watching that one scene. Like this is very early in the game. It's not much of a spoiler. I think that one scene with Sephiroth where he's like, you know, I killed her. Then who was she? And the game just crashes on me. I'm like,
Sephiroth, kill your PC. That's what he was referring
Yes,
to.
the final boss just kills your PC. Like, you can't win now.
and it's like I don't know. It's like some DirectX error. I think that was it. I don't know. I took a screenshot of it right before it crashed, so it even triggered like the AMD like was it like the graphic management settings? Like we experienced this crash. It's like, could you put this report in? And you're like, damn it.
So what I've been reading is, yeah, one, if you're running this on with an AMD graphics card, you're gonna struggle. Like you said, you've experienced crashing. Like it seems like a lot of people who have AMD graphics cards playing this game are really struggling to various extents on that. And two, even with the most recent like AMD driver settings, like I believe like one of the outstanding issues that they outlined in those driver patch notes or driver update notes are like we still have yet to address issues with the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So AMD is still trying to troubleshoot their hardware to support this game.
It kind of feels bad. The one game I care about is the game gets shafted by AMD card.
I mean that's kind of but I mean that's kind of where the wind's been blowing these days. Where like if you really want to ensure complete compatibility with modern games, it seems like NVIDIA graphics cards are go for the most part. Like I remember when James was playing through Wild Hearts on that. Was it the
It was
Intel?
no,
I
no,
forgot
no.
what it was.
It was the at the time most recent AMD card 7900 XTX. Yeah, I had an issue with that was based around reflections that would cause this like weird graphical artifact. And the thing that really annoyed me about that is that I had just finished playing through Wo Long, which was the same engine and had the same problem, but I was able to get by with that because you could just completely disable the screen space reflection, so it wouldn't be a problem. And I had reported that bug to Koei Tecmo, and like a month later, they released Wild Hearts, and like it actually came out, like the game itself released before they fucking patched it, even though they knew months in advance. And that's what really pissed me off there.
And then you're just like, and the game ran fine on NVIDIA hardware.
Yeah, and like I've said it before, but it's like before I had a 6900 XT, and then I had like an NVIDIA based laptop. And when RDNA 2 was a thing, like AMD cards were very competitive. It was back before like a lot of games required like FSR DLSS, and it was before ray tracing became way more like important for like modern game releases. So back then, I was really happy with the AMD card because it was basically 3090 performance in everything but ray trace games, and fucking nothing was coming out with ray tracing. But then when I updated my laptop because like 6 GB of VRAM wasn't working anymore, like I went with an AMD based laptop because there was like no NVIDIA laptop. Unless you wanted to pay like $1,500+, you would be stuck with 8 GB of VRAM. And it's like, I'm not buying a laptop that's going to last me at least like 3 years with only 8 GB of VRAM when there's already games having problems with that. But because I went with an AMD laptop, because I had that personal experience of issues with AMD graphics cards in my desktop with pre-release games, and it wasn't even just RDNA 3. I had that issue with Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, where the Sunbreak patch, when I was reviewing it, I had to fucking install a Linux distribution to play it because they broke the game on AMD hardware pre-release for the Sunbreak expansion. So it's like, it got to the point where I literally had to swap out my GPU because it's like, well, if I'm going to cover games before release, and I've had 3 games with issues with AMD graphics pre-release in the span of a calendar year, of course I'm going to have to switch to NVIDIA. I can't have both my systems be AMD based because that's just
Yeah.
asking
Just be
for
like Adam
trouble.
and have like 2 or 3 towers set up at the same time.
Yeah.
3 hours.
Yeah, sorry for the rant. It's just one of
It's
those things
okay,
where
it's
it's
okay.
like
It's relevant.
yeah, it's like if people know me, it's like most people, it's not going to be a major issue 99% of the time. And when it works, AMD cards are good. Like, I'm very happy with my laptop. It was the right purchase. My issues with it are not due to AMD, they're due to Asus, but that's a whole nother discussion. But yeah, it's at the point where I don't see myself switching back because unfortunately, it's just NVIDIA won. They have the features that everyone needs, everyone wants, and because NVIDIA has the market share, games are being developed with those cards in mind, which means that since AMD can't compete on the ray tracing front or the upscaling front, like 3 years ago, it was like a nice to have, but now it's like, okay, well, if you're going to be playing a game and like Unreal Engine 5 games are made to use upscaling like that, like you can argue until I'm red in the face about whether or not that's a good thing, but that doesn't change the fact that there's all these Unreal Engine games coming out, and if you want to play those games on PC, you want to have the best possible experience, you want to have an acceptable experience, and the only way to do that is with DLSS.
Yeah, like the
Yeah.
frame rate targets now just basically assume DLSS baseline, like for recommendations and things like that, which wasn't how it was 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and even that the tides on that might start swaying another different way because it's starting to sound like the 5090 might be able to support ray tracing fine without the DLSS or the upscaling as well. It has enough horsepower to kind of
Sounds like an insane card. I hope
support
you
things
got one.
natively.
I
Yeah,
hope you got
so
one lined up for you, James.
Well, I'll be lined up for something on Wednesday, that's for sure.
You know what game I
So-
wonder? I wonder what game Assassin's Creed Shadows, like what GPU driver or system they're working with. I remember Valhalla was an AMD game. Like
Huh.
that's the one
Oh,
they
yeah.
partnered with. So
yeah.
I'm curious what Shadows will.
I will soon.
Are you,
In
are you
2
gonna are you gonna
months.
cover Shadows?
No.
I never liked a single Assassin's Creed game that I played in my life, so I would never touch it. So sadly, that's my experience with it.
Well,
Like,
we weren't asking you, Chow.
He's the one with the AMD card though.
That's crazy. No, it's, yeah, I get it. I get it. So yeah, we'll see how that all shakes out, but hopefully, Chow, AMD will eventually have your back when they release a driver update that rectifies your issues.
Look, I went to Team Red,
Didn't
and this
they-
is what I get.
Didn't they just release a driver for Rebirth? I'm pretty sure like a day ago they did.
I don't know if it's like
Pretty quick
recently.
because I played it on launch, so I'm not sure if they just released it yesterday. So
Mhm. So maybe try that.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
that the other gripes are more like, I mean, it's like it looks great and
AMD
runs smooth.
Software Adrenaline Edition 25.1.1 optional update release notes. New game support Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Just came out.
Yeah, but of course, some people are running at 5 because some people have very, top of the line hardware. Some people are really struggling because a good chunk of them, like any PC game, some people have have really low specs and outdated stuff, and they're trying to play FF7 Rebirth, and they're like, why is this game not performing well on my 2004 PC?
Wait. Yeah, like
Like,
why
what's
is
going
my
on?
3 gigs of VRAM on my 790?
Just every PC
And obviously the best the best developers on PC will try to, cover as many bases as possible. But I just don't think that's where Square Enix is.
And then Michaela as well on the site recovered performance on FF7 Rebirth on Steam Deck, and even though it's been labeled Steam verified, that doesn't make it the smoothest experience on Steam Deck. There are definitely compromises that naturally for the scope of game and what they're trying to do. So Steam Deck may not have the horsepower to really run some parts well for this.
It sounds like the CPU might be the bottleneck in some of the cases.
Yeah. So all eyes are, instead of the Switch 2 now, people are like, when's the Switch 2? People are now eyeing like, when's the Steam Deck 2? You know,
I mean, I
and
think I saw
what sort of hardware
Mikhail's
they'll have.
playing on Steam Deck. I think it was like just chugging during in calm or whatever.
Yeah, definitely some of the more like crowded areas. It's like, oh, and he tried this with a ROG Ally and a PlayStation Portal as well. Um, but definitely give his article a read on, if you're planning to play this on the go, or you're still thinking about whether you should pick this game up on a Steam Deck, or if you have a ROG Ally or another um, portable PC option. Definitely give his article a read. It's cool to see it, and it's sounding like there were reports that came out. I think this is a natural segue here, just to kind of do this story. But there were interviews with the development team about the next Final Fantasy VII remake title, the final one in the trilogy, and it's sounding like, obviously it's now in development, obviously, but it might not be an exclusive to PlayStation initially. Now it seems like parts of the interview were like, maybe we'll just release this simultaneously with other platforms and not just release on PlayStation first, like Remake and Rebirth. So it's starting to sound like maybe the last part of the trilogy, everyone can experience it from the get go without any sort of console exclusivity.
I hope that's the
Right.
case.
And yeah, basically it just sounds like they saw the gap between Remake and Rebirth, and the gap between Rebirth console and Rebirth PC as neither one of those necessary. And it sounds like at least the statement here is that they're trying to address both. It's not confirmation that the next one's going to be like worldwide or like simultaneous release. It's kind of just like it's not a promise. It's more just like a goal, I suppose, is how I would
A
read. That's
goal
how
of
I read.
using, yeah. So,
Yeah.
but hopefully that is the case. I think everyone really, really wants simultaneous releases for this at long last. It always stung a little bit because like even then, like I got FF7 Rebirth on PS5 because I just wanted to, I had the time. I wanted to play it for myself. Didn't want to. I just wanted to see, like, be in the moment where everyone is still discovering the game. And of course, I had to make compromises. Like, okay, I want this to at least run somewhat well. So I decided I'll play this with kind of blurry visuals, but at least it's somewhat hitting 60 FPS some of the time.
Yeah.
Um, and hopefully they get there with the third part of the trilogy, because because everything kind of rides on like how this thing will end. Like a lot of like everything that they set up to Remake and Rebirth, it's like they're going in some crazy directions, but it really, how will they land is the big question.
Just gotta put your faith in Nojima. Nojima is either the biggest hack in the world or he is a goddamn genius.
Like,
Yeah.
every time Chow thinks about Nojima, this is the first thought that he has about the dude. But
I don't know
yeah,
how
we'll see.
this is not meant to be taken fully seriously. I promise. and I'm not taking this fully seriously, but I did see someone link the Steam concurrent user accounts for Dynasty Warriors being at like 69,000, and then for Final Fantasy being at like 39,000 or whatever. He's like, Final Fantasy is dead. Dynasty Warriors is the new king.
Let's fucking go. That's what I'm talking about.
You don't do staggered releases, okay? You just release it at the same time. You won't have this issue anymore.
Nope,
But,
Dynasty
but I,
Warriors.
I did see that the 40K that Rebirth got it's something like third or fourth for Square Enix releases on Steam.
Yeah,
I don't have that in front of me though, so take that with a grain of salt. But I think people were fearing it would be worse, but hoping it would be better, and it kind of like fell between it. It's like it's doing okay, and I know like I don't want to be like, those Tetracast folks in their, they over prioritize Steam concurrent
our
numbers.
concurrencies.
The only thing is,
It's
it's all we can really get.
That's all it was.
Yeah, and it's like the only thing we have to base
Right.
on, and we hope
It-
we hope that is like 6 digits. We want to see that number in 100K or more, but we got what we got. And Square Enix is just kind of in a weird place. Like, and we've talked about it. I don't want to repeat too many things, but like they've got obviously the Rebirth, or the remake trilogy wrapping up. They've got Kingdom Hearts 4 dormant for a few years, and then it's kind of like what's next? Tactics remake, Final Fantasy 9 remaster. It's long rumored going to make an appearance this summer. Who knows?
Give me
they're
the
also
Threads
at
of
least-
Fate.
What was that, Josh?
Threads of Fate is definitely coming out.
At least Square Enix is like taking like baby steps in the right direction. Because remember, when FF7 remake first came to PC, it was an Epic exclusive for some time before it finally came to Steam. So now with Rebirth
Yep.
coming to PC, it's now at Steam and Epic at the same time. So now, if they're taking baby steps in the right direction, maybe the
Release
last
on
part
GOG.
is yeah, that's right. No, but the simultaneous release across all platforms, maybe that's a
yeah.
logical next step.
According to Kite's translation of both the 4Gamer interview and the Famitsu interview, this is Kite Steinbeck, who does a lot of the translation for us,
Yeah.
said Hamaguchi wants the team to release the game on a broader range of platforms. And Famitsu, he said, predicts that the gap between console and PC version for the third entry would be shorter. So I don't know if that means like console releases at once and then PC release.
They're being very
thereafter.
vague on purpose because
Yeah,
they can't make any promises, especially with development schedules and obviously contracts.
They're keeping doors open if they don't
Yeah.
want to put themselves in a corner and be like, well, we never promised. We just said
Yeah,
we're gonna
they
try our
cannot.
best.
Yeah, they're definitely not allowed to say this will definitely launch on all like multiple platforms simultaneously. They cannot
And
say
we see this all the time with like development speak, and I don't really fault it at all. Like
Yeah.
if someone asks, you normally see it in the other direction when a shareholder or whatever will ask a studio head about whether they're anticipating following up on an IP, and the developer will always keep their door open. Like, sure, we might revisit that. Like, and then some websites are like, they confirmed they're working on a sequel to, I don't know, Breath of Fire or whatever. It's like, no, they're just keeping their doors open. They just don't want to say anything absolute. And this is kind of the same thing in the other direction. They're just not saying anything absolute so that they aren't in a corner that they have to go back on. That's all it is.
just do that.
And I don't fault it.
Yeah, do what that mega F-Zero fan who became a Nintendo shareholder did, and just become a Nintendo shareholder so you can ask Nintendo directly in a shareholder meeting what's the status of F-Zero and get a non-committal answer. Awesome. Oh, man, I still think about that story from time to time. Like, man, this is fucking crazy. Some people will definitely. It's definitely a way to talk to the company directly, I guess, is to become a shareholder.
Before we go into the rest of the news, we do also have the review for the recently released Ender Magnolia Bloom of the Mist on RPGsite.net. This was written by Junior, who was not able to make it on the podcast. But basically, long story short, he really liked the game a lot. And I don't know if he's played Ender Lilies, which is this is kind of the follow-up to. Adam, I know you and Chow and maybe Josh. Am I the only one that hasn't played Ender Lilies?
I think so. I think
Maybe.
But Adam, I know you are really excited about Ender Magnolia, but you hadn't made time for it quite yet. But it seems like it's got overwhelmingly positive on Steam. Junior, our reviewer on RPG Site, really liked it. Seems like it's being well received, kind of up and down. And like the number of reviews on Steam, it was like 5,000, I believe. So that's usually
Well,
like a
Well, it was that includes the early access period.
yeah.
that's true. Good
The
point.
early
Good
access
point.
was in like for a little over a year, maybe. Like it
Not
was
quite a
in
year.
early access. Yeah, it was in early access for quite some time, so it's an aggregate of all of that. But it is interesting though because there are certain things in Junior's review that he complained about, and just yesterday the Inter Magnolia Steam page had a new news post that says plans for the next version, which is their next patch update, which is basically lowering the parameters for like the lab rat enemies and having new platforms for the Crimson Force for better shortcuts. Which is both of those were there were some gripes that Junior had and that were definitely in
I did see the mention of the lab rats. Apparently, they were
yeah.
overtuned.
Man, they must have been really overtuned if that's like, yeah, I heard about the lab rats. Those one
Yeah,
very specific
fix number
enemy.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people complain about that. So it's kind of funny seeing them like, okay, we need to address this right away. And even some people on our Discord is like, hey, I think the developers read the RPG Site's review of Ender Magnolia when they took a screenshot of the patch notes to share with our Discord. So, but it's cool to see that, like, yeah, Adam, you were talking about this before the podcast, but it seems like everything about this game is going in the right direction. People who are newcomers who never played Ender Lily seem to like it. People who played the original seem to like it. Um, yeah, I mean, that's definitely what you want to see with this kind of game. You even mentioned, Adam, that there were some people who didn't like the
Yeah, so my
combat in
review.
Ender
So I
Lilies.
reviewed Ender Lilies. I
Yeah,
really
yeah.
love Ender Lilies. It's like one of the
Mhm.
only games to give me the same feeling that Valkyrie Profile did, and it's kind of the inverse of Tales of Graces, where I feel like its combat was just serviceable, where everything else was excellent. And I know some people, who they didn't really care for the game because of the combat. They're like, the combat's just not good enough, and I can't hold my attention. But it seems like, from what I've heard about this game from Junior and other people who have played both games, that it seems like it does make improvements in those areas where it maintains the same sorts of tone, storytelling, visuals, and other things like other gameplay components, as well as improving those maybe weaker spots like combat and like just kind of improving it where it needed to be. So I'm really excited to get to this when I have time to.
Yeah, same here. But everything that I've heard so far, like just in general, is just like this is. Hopefully, this translates into like better success for that studio because it seems like the studio they kind of cracked the formula of like what really resonates with people, and you can definitely see it for people who played both Ender Lilies and Ender Magnolia. You've seen that like, hey, they really took that feedback to heart and just kind of instead of just having only certain aspects be excellent, have everything be top notch. Seems like Ender Magnolia.
They did Harvestella as well, right? Same
Uh,
developer, weren't they?
Live, yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Live Wire.
I remember there was a caveat to that. Like,
There's two
I don't remember
developers,
what it was. Yeah, I don't quite remember
Livewire
what
and
it was.
AdGlobe.
Yeah.
One of those developers worked on Harvestella. One of them worked on that SRPG game that I reviewed that I thought was okay. What was that called? I don't even remember. Shit.
was that that Western looking SRPG? Was
Yeah, it
that
was from like one of
medieval?
the older Fire Emblem creators. I can't even,
Yeah.
what was that game
Oh,
called?
I forgot what
Shit.
it's called. I remember what you're talking about. I don't remember what it is.
Oh god, this is on the tip of my
Oh
tongue.
yeah, but Livewire, yeah, developer for
I'm gonna go
Harvestella
search
and
up Adam's reviews right now and
I'm
see.
literally doing that in my review doc. Okay, what did I
I'm
review?
sorry to throw you guys off the loop, but I was
Fucking
thinking
Chow.
they're so good at making these games. Like maybe they'll make the perfect farming game next time.
Yeah, Square Enix, they're definitely looking for another Harvestella. Unfortunately, that's probably
at
Redemption
least bring
Reapers.
Harvestella to
Redemption
oh yeah,
Reapers. Yeah, there you go.
at least bring Harvestella to Xbox or Sony consoles.
Is
I'd
that
be all for
is
that.
that not on them yet?
I
Really?
think it's
I
just
think
a
it's still
PC
Switch and
game.
PC.
And
Wow.
Switch.
Yeah,
I
because it's
thought
from that era of Final Fantasy where it was a dartboard on a Ferris wheel about what platforms they would land on.
Yeah.
Remember when Triangle Strategy released on PlayStation? Oh wait, it didn't. It released on VR though.
Yep. Obviously, we also do have the written review up on the site for Dynasty Warriors Origins. We talked about that at length. Thank you, Josh, on our last episode of the podcast. So we talked then that you were going to get it all written up and published to the site. Now it is. So
Yep.
you can either listen to our episode last week, give that a review, or both. No one's going to stop you.
Basically everything I said on the podcast last week I just put into words.
Yep.
It's only then, like, even Mikhail in our staff chat was like, he had two friends that, like, they became fans of, like, the Muso type of game through Hyrule Warriors, and now they gave Dynasty Warriors Origins a shot, and then he puts the fucking I get it gif for both of their reactions. Like, I get it.
Yep.
It was lovely to see.
And then one other feature that I'll just quickly shout out that went up on the site is that Mikhail and Alex went to put together a listicle for the best RPGs on Game Pass. This is just going to be like a living document similar to James's best RPGs on Steam Deck. Just a fun listicle that will just kind of keep up to date as more things, get on the service or off the service. If you have Game Pass and you're new to a series, what you should try and things like that. So Mikhail put that together and it's up on the site as well. Going into news, I didn't list anything here as major news, so this is kind of an arbitrary order here. Might just be in the order of how it released over the last week. So we have a handful of trailers, a couple release dates. Obviously, a lot of release dates are accompanied by trailers, and then a few sales update, one good and one not great. But just going in the order I have things listed here, we got a trailer for the upcoming 100-line Last Defense Academy. This was the tactical RPG from Tokyo Games that was announced at a Nintendo Direct late last year. This trailer basically introduces 6 characters that are going to be present in the game. And when I watched this trailer, knowing nothing about like this creator or these characters, the one thing that I took away is that the one character that's supposed to be like a genius has like a tomato on her head. I'm like, I don't know what this is, but there she is.
They're a genius.
But yeah.
Yeah, and I think Taipei Game Show has been going on this past week, and then there's some footage of like some of like the gameplay that people took attendees there, showing off more like the strategy RPG battles of the game.
Oh, okay. I guess she's also the rich girl among rich girls. She always wears a strange tomato mask, never showing her true face. Like that's a character trait. Sure, why not?
They're just the new Xenoblade X character, just recolored.
I haven't played Xenoblade X, so I don't know.
There's a new Xenoblade X character that has like a weird mask over their face.
Okay. And just a reminder, 100-line Last Defense Academy is releasing on April 24th worldwide for Switch and PC. So I'm guessing we're going to get a handful more trailers over the next few months as we get to the launch of that game. Yeah, this one is just a character introduction trailer. And I guess they call it Character Trailer 1, so we'll probably be back next week with Character Trailer 2. Atelier Yumia got kind of a gameplay overview, like a pretty long 6-7 minute trailer here, talking a little bit about story premise, a lot about gameplay. I think this is potentially the first or maybe the most extended look we've had at combat in this game, showing that it is a real-time combat system. You can play as the other characters, at least in combat. There is like a close proximity and a distant proximity, like battle modes that you can toggle between. And of course, it also goes into like. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's definitely the most extensive explanation of combat because they've shown combat clips before, but you couldn't it just looked like
it's hard to
chaotic.
decipher.
Yeah, you just couldn't really tell what was going on until I didn't even know there were like ranges until like this video, for example. Sorry, go on. I interrupted you.
Well, I was just gonna say like that's the big thing that I took away is the detailed look at combat. Not detailed, but our first real look at combat. But also it talks about like synthesis, exploration. You can ride a bike. You have kind of like an energy meter that you can refill and it drains if you're in like hostile environments, things like that.
Well, Brian, according to the trailer, as it told you, with the gun, you can solve gimmicks and investigate enemies.
Yeah, it's interesting that it shows Yumiya just pull out a rifle and just start blasting. So it's like, oh, okay. But she's like shooting at she's like shooting at vines and things like that.
I love that. That's my favorite part of the trailer.
The solution to everything is to shoot it.
Yeah, you watch those movies when they pull a gun and they shoot down a lock. It's like that does not work.
There's also some sort of like a decorating or like a home building in this game too, which is neat. Like I guess you can maybe design your own atelier structure.
that's kind of following up on the feature they had in Rise of 3. A lot of this is like the combat is real time, but they were already kind of like heading that way with Rise of 2 and 3 in particular, where it was like ATB, but you had real time elements. So like by the end of the game, it didn't really feel like ATB because you just had enough going on that you were constantly doing something. So it feels like an extension of that, just looking at what they're doing. Which is fine because I actually really liked how Rise 2 and 3's combat system worked. So them kind of expanding on it to this degree, I'm interested to see how it'll feel.
Were there any aspects of the trailer that caught your eye? That's like, oh, they're really trying something different, or just like more of expansion?
I will definitely say that it now that I've seen the trailer, it does feel like Rise of 3 was kind of like a test bed for what they wanted to do with Yumia. Because the thing with Rise of 3 is that it was open world.
Yeah.
Like Rise of 1 and 2 had bigger zones, but they were segmented off. And then with Rise of 3, like I remember when I started playing, it's like, wait a second, this is the entire like map of Rise of 1, and now it's a seamless open world. Everything's connected. And there's no load zones. So it seems like they're doing something like that. And it's going to be interesting to see how that feels with a world map that was designed to be completely open from the get-go. You had some of that in Rise of 3. But yeah, I'm excited for it. I think the Rise of trilogy was good. So I'm excited to see what they can do next now that they have more budget and whatnot. So
Yeah, obviously, the elephant in the room is like everything. Like the biggest hope, especially for the Western audience with this release, is hopefully the localization at launch is at a good state and not how Rise of 3 ended up. Hopefully,
well, yeah,
I've definitely had friends like who were like they played the Rise of games, but they purchased Rise of 3 at launch, and they're like, wow, this localization is fucking ass.
I know some people even
and
felt
they-
it was like a machine translate
and-
parts.
and the thing that sucks is that Rise of 2's translation was fine. So it's
yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's like I mean it wasn't like anything especially special, but like it was more than acceptable. But Rise of 3, like at least at launch, was just what are we doing here?
Yeah, they never like returned to it because they had other games to play. Like even
No,
though
they did. They did.
but they fixed it. I know, and they
Yeah, I
tightened
haven't
it
gone
up.
back. Yeah.
I have absolute faith in them. I feel this is the year of
I
Koei Tecmo. They
I
have-
Oh.
feel like there is enough reasons for me personally to believe that the translation is going to be fine this time around.
Okay.
And I can't
Okay.
specify, but I am a bit more confident now than I would have been like a month ago.
Okay.
I totally believe this is the year of Koei Tecmo. It will be. We even got like revivals back too, like the Ichigai
Yeah.
revivals, which is completely off topic. But
Like
It's gonna
honestly,
be like
can
it's gonna be the
can we
Go
talk
for it.
about this for a second? It's
Go
like,
for it.
oh my god, like this year, like Koei Tecmo is really firing on all cylinders. You have Dynasty Warriors Origins, you have like Atelier Yumia coming out in like a month and a half. Well, no, 2 months. And then you have like Ninja Gaiden 2 Black that just dropped as a shadow drop, and it seems people are mostly happy with it. There's some like complaints, but people are generally saying it's arguably the best version to play now, which is a win. And now we have Ninja Gaiden 4 coming out at the end of the year, and it looks incredible.
Yeah,
So,
and then you have the Atelier Rihanna console game.
I completely forgot about that. Yeah.
Also, put Rise of the Ronin on PC already.
Yeah, that too.
I will
Waiting
play
for
it.
that as well. So yeah. So
Man,
Koei
this-
Tecmo Games
this-
is taking it seriously. Like
Yeah.
I remember they had like we talked a little bit about this before, Adam. Like they had initiatives like during like when they were talking about their fiscal results and their expectations for forecast. Like there was a big emphasis on like, hey, we're gonna try to up like the quality of our games and have a stricter like audit of like the quality of our games.
Yeah,
moving
and they
forward.
even have like a new studio making a AAA game that we know nothing about.
They call it like the AAA
It's
studio, game
literally
studio
called
or
the AAA
something.
studio.
Yeah.
And I mean, considering like how Ninja Gaiden 4 looks, if that's not their AAA games, like, oh god, what are we gonna be in for?
Yeah. So
But,
yeah, hopefully I hope.
between this,
Mhm.
the Sega stuff like that was announced at the Game Awards, it's obvious that like all of these like mid to large Japanese publishers are trying to become Capcom, and honestly, I'm here for it because it seems like the right move.
Competition is good. Competition is good. So it incentivizes everyone to get better. They see, someone else's seeing how successful they are. It's like, okay, how can we get there? What do we need to do to get there? And this is the result of competition doing its job.
So Capcom's gonna revive Sengo Busara. I
Don't
love
give
that
me hope.
game.
Don't give me hope.
I mean, if Dynasty Warriors Origins does well enough, I mean, if I was Capcom, I would look at that and be like, oh shit, there's a market there.
But
Look,
yeah,
I just don't like Muso games. That's the only one I actually like because it's so over the top.
once again, like the biggest thing working against Atelier Yumia for me is the date. There's a certain other game near it that I will revisit or visit Yumia down the line this year, but that is not the game that I will be playing around that.
Josh is super excited for Assassin's Creed.
I'm so fucking screwed, man. I'm so screwed.
It's pretty wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's good shit. Good shit.
Two other trailers that we got updates for this week. This next one is for Chernobylite 2 Exclusion Zone. This is actually a trailer coming off the back of their mid-development Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign. And I don't remember, I did not follow the campaign directly to know if this was part of the campaign itself. But as a result of the successful campaign, which was funded within 3 days, Chernobylite 2 will both have the third-person mode, which it was announced with, as well as a first-person mode of which the original game had. And basically, it sounds like they heard a lot of feedback from fans of the original game who loved the first-person mode and weren't on board with the third-person mode. They didn't think it was as immersive. And now, seemingly, at least the way they're framing it, is that as a result of the Kickstarter success, Chernobylite 2 will have both viewpoints playable, which is really cool. I still think it's interesting that they have a 2025 release date slated from the same year that they had a crowdfunding campaign, or at least at the very beginning of. The timing seems interesting to me, but if they can nail it, that'll be I'll take it back.
Yeah, when it was first revealed and announced, I had no idea that they would hold a Kickstarter campaign throughout it. So when we first showed the song, it's like, okay, they're releasing a new one, a sequel, but they just never made a mention that they're gonna have a crowdfunding campaign. And when they showed off that they had a Kickstarter, I'm like, what is going on? That's great that it was successful. It very much caught me off guard. I didn't look too deeply into the implementation. Is this gonna be a sort of seamless camera perspective switch that they're gonna go for it, or more like a toggle in the options? Or I don't know if they ever specified.
My understanding is that it was toggleable.
Okay.
I don't know if you'll have to go into a menu to toggle it, or if you use the scroll wheel or something like a Starfield or something like that. But basically, that both will be selectable. And Adam, remind me, Avowed will have both, but they primarily show first person.
That's a thing. I almost forget. Oh yeah, they announced it about had third person, but I don't know how that works, or if it's only in certain sections. To me, when I think of Avowed, I'm like, yep, that's a first person game, and I'm gonna play that in first person. And what is third person? But I know some people really love the third person mode, but I don't know how that works in that game.
I'm gonna be the third person player in that game whenever I pick it up. If you can play the whole game from start to finish in third person in that game, I will do that. Just to experience it, because that's it.
We also got a trailer for Dragonkin: The Banished. This is the early access game. We talked about this last week. It's a isometric hack and slash that's going to early access in March. It's going to have 4 playable characters. 3 of them will be available. They're, I guess, going to have weekly trailers, or at least it seems like that's what they're doing. This one is focusing basically on its skill system. They call it the Ancestral Grid. Basically, it's a hexagonal grid where you get chunks of hexagons that have different shapes. So there's a shape component to what you can fit in the grid, as well as if you have a skill and a modifier in sequence on that grid, that's how they connect. When I watched this, it actually reminded me a little bit of Lost Epoch, but it's not quite Last Epoch. It's not quite the same, because Last Epoch is more tiering up specific nodes in a skill tree, not really about placement. But in terms of the result on the field, they did a good job in this trailer showing hey, if you've got this familiar and you've got this ability and you link up the abilities together in this way, you actually see a tangible change actually in combat, not just do 5% more burn damage. So as someone who doesn't really have a lot of interest in this game directly, I still think that this was kind of a good sales pitch for the game for those that do like this kind of Diablo style, Last Epoch style, I guess potentially Path of Exile style gameplay that this game is trying to go for. So a pretty detailed trailer that they released ahead of the early access release in March. We'll have to update the uh, release date on this one on the site. Another one that also had a trailer and about an upcoming update is we kind of knew this was coming. We already knew about an expansion pass, but Kingdom Come Deliverance II, the team at Warhorse kind of revealed their roadmap for 2025 about that game. It's launching, of course, early February, February 4th, but they've already trying to detail what is going to come out shortly thereafter. Spring update. This is like the main one here is like hardcore mode. Not for me, but I know a lot of people swear by it from the original game. They say, well, I'm not even going to bother to get it until hardcore mode is available. So that'll be coming as a free update in spring. And then basically a DLC kind of chapter in each season after summer, autumn, winter.
Yeah, 3 different DLCs, which just seems like that's pretty common these days. And the first game had it, 3 different, DLC stories.
Yeah. I think Josh brought it up. He's like, well, when you release something like this, that just tells me to wait for it. And I can definitely see that because like when I played Kingdom Come Deliverance, I kind of lucked out. I just played it like last month. And all the DLC had already been released, and so I already had like the Hound Dog, and I already had like all the other things that they added to that. Where it's kind of like a different game playing it at launch versus playing it down the road. So this, if you really are looking forward to this game, but not to the sense that you have to play it day one, it sounds like they're really going to be supporting it pretty well. Obviously, we can't tell how substantial each of the DLC updates will be. We only really get like a short little 2-sentence summary about what each is. Like one of them is following up on Henry's blacksmith father, because one of the cities that he has history in is playing a part in the sequel and things like that. So that seems like a natural tie-in. But is it just going to be like a single quest, or is it actually going to be something more substantial? When I played through Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, I did like how all the DLC is kind of integrated into the main game. Like when I think of some other games where you go to a completely new map for the DLC, it makes it feel very separated. Like, oh, this is added on after the fact, and you take a train from one place to the next or whatever. Obviously, not a train in this game. I was thinking of Fallout. But I did like how Warhorse integrated their additional chapters into the game. Like, it's not all end game. It's not all post credits. You do this. It's like, hey, we've added content here or we've added characters here. But we'll see exactly what they land on for the second game.
Yeah, there's this was shared in the staff chat because I just kind of feel like this increasingly when I see more and more games like show their roadmaps before release. I'm like, okay, you're telling me that if I just wait for like, I don't know, 6 months to a year, I can probably get this game at a discount. It'll have more content with it, and the way that Kingdom Come, like you said, integrates stuff into it, it feels like a more complete game. And there'll be fixes along with that discount because there are definitely going to be like some post-launch bug fixes and whatnot. And this is just like I think the only game that like I felt good about like supporting at launch that had the roadmap previously like revealed was like Space Marine 2 because the single player was going to be a full campaign. There was like no story additions to that single player on the roadmap. That roadmap was mainly aesthetic things and more maps for like the co-op side of things. But if you still play it the campaign, you're still getting the full story from beginning to end, and no like additional stuff down the line for that story because it's already been told.
Yeah,
You
that
know,
makes sense.
and like I real I and like the Lords of the Fallen, recent version of that game, new version of that game that like that's basically feels like a whole completely different game from like what launched, on that game. So now people who are jumping in, just like, like it's good that the dev supported it, but at the same time, it's like if you just waited like a year, they basically kind of ironed out everything with it and transformed it from top
I
to
mean, I
bottom.
guess there's a reason like the Reddit patient gamers exists. Like sometimes being patient is honestly going to give you the best experience.
So it kind of like I get why people and why devs and publishers, feel obligated and almost expected from modern game audiences to like release a roadmap because it's kind of weird when like modern audiences it's like when you are releasing a game and people are like, "Where's your roadmap? What are you gonna add on to this?" Like it's almost expected to like for some modern game audiences, like they want to treat it almost like as a live service release in a sense. Where like how else are you gonna support this game? It's like just how about you just what if it's like kind of
I mean,
one or the other,
it does almost feel like an obligation, so much so that when a studio doesn't do it, or at least doesn't do it frequently, like Baldur's Gate 3, I think it had an early roadmap, but like otherwise they're just like, here's an update, like that sort of thing. Or
Yeah.
like Cyberpunk, where they're like, here's a roadmap, it barely says anything. And there's examples both ways. I don't mean to pick on
Yeah.
any specific developer, but when it feels like an obligation from the publisher and the developer's like, sure, I'll throw something together. Obviously we don't know in this case, like
Remember
where
when
this is
Eiyuden
coming
Chronicle
from.
had a roadmap?
And then they're like, never mind, we're not going to follow that.
Did they ever like release that first DLC, Adam, or whatever, for the
they
roadmap?
they just said we're gonna get all DLC out in spring. I believe is the last update I saw.
That was all. That was just a release that like definitely did not warrant a roadmap whatsoever. Like for that type of game, but when I saw, I was like, this is ridiculous, man.
I don't think you need to release a roadmap unless you're like a Kickstarter kind of game.
I mean,
'cause
that was a
people,
Kickstarter game, so yeah.
I know, but I'm
I
just
get
saying, like
it, yeah.
in general, like if you're like just a big game of some sort, I don't think you need a roadmap. I mean,
Well,
it's just
I
kind of
mean, it really depends on the game because like whenever Monster Hunter, of course, that was kind of conflated by the fact that you had like offset roadmaps for both World and Rise, whether you were console or PC or Switch or
Yeah.
Xbox or whatever.
Um,
But like a game that is dipping its toes into service, which Monster Hunter does, and it's like fine, like that's kind of what people expect. That makes sense. Like, hey, we're gonna add this, at this cadence. We're gonna add new monsters at this cadence. Or if it is like a Hoyoverse type game, and they say we're gonna release patches at this cadence, and we're gonna like that makes sense. But for a game like this, where it's
Single player
totally
RPG.
single player,
it's like imagine Final
not
Fantasy VII Rebirth. I was like, we have a roadmap. It's like, okay, where's the DLCs, guys?
Dude, that'd be crazy. Like, you had a roadmap for episode Rebirth, and it's like, there's a roadmap for patch notes. Like, our upcoming patch is coming around spring, patch 1.2.
Oh yeah, you know how mad I
we'll
was when I was playing it on launch. It's like, where's that patch so I could get my trophy? That Shinra manager bug won't let me get
okay,
it.
where's it on the roadmap?
It's like, where's that roadmap?
Oh, man, that'd be insane if we ever had that direction, man. We're almost getting there.
that covers us, I think, for most of the updates. So we do have a couple updates that I tied together with release dates at the end that we'll get to shortly. Before that, though, a couple sales updates. Speaking about being patient, I reviewed Warhammer 40K Rogue Trader like late last year, a few months after it released, like December of 23, and had a better experience with it. I'm going to take that to the grave because those games notoriously launch in terrible states. But Rogue Trader has surpassed 1 million copies sold, which I believe that means that all of Owlcat's games have surpassed that benchmark. So obviously, for kind of a niche genre, the turn-based. Well, I say niche, but Baldur's Gate 3 blew. I can't use that anymore. Baldur's Gate 3 sold like dozens of
CRPGs.
million. Yeah,
Oh.
but yeah,
No one
Rogue.
else sold 1 million as well, Josh.
Huh?
No one else just sold 1 million recently as well.
Oh, what?
The Hungry Lamb.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Hey, congratulations to Hungry Lambda. Sorry, Brian. Dang, challenge is fucking. Okay, sorry. Go on, Brian.
I mean, that's pretty much it. Obviously, I
Yeah.
like Rogue Trader quite a lot. It's my favorite of the Owlcat games. Good. Hopefully, 1 million is a success for them. Obviously, they're treating it like a success.
Yeah,
So
it's a
taking
good.
it
It
at their
seems to
word.
have like be a positive reception. Like, hey, reaching that 1 million milestone, they're very thankful for the support that they've gotten from their fans and all the players.
Mhm.
Because these are the games that they consistently they release are all consistently. They take a lot of hours to beat. For a market that obviously Baldur's Gate 3 very much popularized it to the modern audience, but they all kind of known for their CRPG releases, and for the most part not necessarily the most popular genre.
Yeah, I
out
was
there.
trying to remind myself. I didn't say a number. Like, how many has Baldur's Gate 3 sold? From about a year ago, 15 million.
Yeah,
Just like
crazy.
Jesus Christ.
But I imagine no. But obviously, Alcat games like just they're such consistently like solid developers when you give them the time to iron out their bugs and
Yeah, they are ambitious.
yes.
Put it that way.
So
But
like
yeah, I like the game a lot. And I'm
I need
hoping
to
to
get around
revisit
to
it
it.
once more of the DLC is out. Again, it's one of those things where it's like just wait for them to do all their updates and get
Yeah.
all their content in. You'll probably have a really good experience.
That's
And
kind of
then
like
on the
the thing that plays Alcat games, where like from the offset, whenever Alcat games releases like a new like reveals a new game and they announce a release date, it's like okay, that's cool. This game's gonna be awesome in a year. Which is you would hope for Alcat games moving forward because they're so ambitious. Like if you could just like get it in a more stable state at launch, you'd be so
Mhm.
great. But
And I do like for Wrath of the Righteous, they're like, you know what? We were gonna just do 3 DLCs, but we're gonna do 6 because we like making things more than testing things. I don't know that for Second Warfare Reserve, but that's yeah.
yeah.
On the other side of the fence, we have another sales update for another game from last year, Dragon Age Veilguard. Unfortunately, based on an Electronic Arts posting of financial results, has engaged 1.5 million players. So by the way that framing, was this game on like? Oh, it wasn't on Game Pass. It was EA Play.
EA Play Pro for the PC
Yeah.
version.
So including that plus sales, 1.5 million for Dragon Age Veilguard, which supposedly is about 50% below expectations. So unfortunately, not a success in EA's eyes based on the financial results.
So they were expecting to have in quote unquote engaged 3 million players, and that was their primary
Yeah.
baseline
Metric.
And
expectation.
I feel like it's worth stressing that engage doesn't mean sales. Like this
Yeah,
includes
right.
people that played with EA Play Pro, but even if it was all sales, we can pretty safely say that also would not have anywhere met their expectations.
for a
This
company like
is
EA, yeah.
well, no, anyone. This is a major AAA RPG that went through almost a decade of development between reworks and whatnot. Like, we know how much modern AAA games cost to develop, and we know how much games cost to purchase, not counting the 30% cut for digital games on like Steam and like consoles, not counting the retail cut for physical copies. Like, put it another way, there's a decent chance that this hasn't even made back like 80, 90 million of its budget, and that is nowhere close to how
I
much
guess
this
I'm out
game.
of touch because I don't know what the modern Western AAA expectations are these days in terms of like
Spider-Man
sales and
2,
performance.
like
Like,
we know
like
from the Insomniac leaks that Spider-Man 2's budget was over $300 million to develop.
yeah.
Now, I know I've seen some people say like 1.5 million in 3 months should be good. And yeah, for some games that would be, but like I think the best way to put it is they see games like Cyberpunk selling, and it's at 30 million now, and that's lifetime, and Witcher's at 50 million, and all these other games like Horizon is at more than 10 million and whatnot, and like Dragon Age: The Veilguard
Kingdom Come
has a
Deliverance is at
budget.
5 million at least.
Sorry.
7 million? I was like Kingdom Come Deliverance is at like 5 or
Kingdom Come
7 million,
Deliverance is
something
at
like that.
7 or 8 million overall
Yeah.
over time. Now I know those aren't launch sales, but like we don't know Dragon Age's budget, but it's a high budget Western RPG with full like cinematics and tons of voice acting and motion capture and all this stuff. It's not going to be a cheap game to make. They budgeted it expecting to get at least 3 million, close to the range that some of these other games are selling at. These other Western RPGs. Honestly, 3 million is almost modest in a way, like comparatively to those.
Like, and
I'm
don't get me wrong.
thinking like in the time frame, right?
Yeah,
Because
don't
like
get
when you talk about the first Kingdom Come Deliverance, like it reached out those over time and not within like
Well,
the
yeah,
first
I
like,
know.
3
I
months.
know.
yeah,
I'm
but Kingdom
aware.
Comes Deliverance wasn't a AAA game. This is, and don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. Well, let me put it another way. It is a different argument entirely, one I would agree with, to say that AAA development should not have ballooned to the level that it has.
Yeah.
You could say easily that Dragon Age's budget was too high. Like,
Yeah, but all I'm saying is I've seen people that have reacted as if like much of like similar to how people have talked about Square Enix's like expectations for games, saying, "What? They sold 1.5 million copies? Isn't that more than enough to break even?" And it's like, if you know the context of how much like modern AAA games cost, that no wonder they would be disappointed. That's just
I'm coming from the angle like, man, they really made this determination really fast because this game just barely came out like 2 to 3 months ago, and they're like saying, well, it's already. That's what it comes off to me. I felt like they should have like given this game like more breathing room to like grow sales over time instead of like,
But to be honest, though, like you look at
these.
the problem is that not all sales are equal. Like after like 3 months, like people aren't going to buy games full price most of the time. They're gonna wait for a sale. So yeah, it might keep selling over time, but most of those sales are gonna be like half off.
I
And
guess.
we're also in the realm now where like subscriptions play a fact. Like I
Yeah.
remember when Starfield released, it's like how many people bought it versus how many people played it on Game Pass. Like, and so like it only sold, I think, like 2 or 3 million, but was played by 10 million. Is that a success or not? It kind of depends on.
I guess I'm being thrown off by this engaged number, right? Because
Yeah.
like that throws the whole metrics off because I don't know what success looks like with these subscriptions are. Like even if you're even if you're factoring like in like, oh, people won't buy this anymore because they're waiting for sales, but how about like, like the lifetime, or not lifetime, but the next 6 months of EA Pro Game Pro or whatever growth, how does that factor into the metrics? Does it not matter anymore? I don't know, because this whole engaged number and how quote unquote success is measured now has thrown me totally off because for me, I still have like, I guess, this boomer traditional take of like letting games like grow on their own over time and maybe hopefully find success over time, as in not in the first like 2 or 3 months, but like maybe in the first like 3 years.
I think my favorite example of that forever, it'll be when this podcast was first like rebooted, us cheering for Sakuna to reach
Yeah.
the million mark over like months. We'd be like 800,000,
Hell yeah.
900,000.
Let's
Hell yeah,
fucking
come on.
go.
And now we're just like, oh, 1.5, it's dead. Like,
Yeah.
well, with that, we'll go into a few release date updates. None actually for January or February. Those are, I guess, pretty set in stone. We'll see. Actually, a game that was originally planned for February and got moved out to March. Is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon? DanMachi, full end of water and light.
How many L's in
What was
Fullland?
the tagline here? Familia myth, or whatever. Yeah, I forget what order all of those taglines versus title versus
They're
subtitle
all English.
be in.
Most of them are English words, and you're just not sure how they're ordered together.
Yeah, like title versus subtitle versus tagline versus like I don't know. But anyways, it was originally supposed to release on February 27th. It's being pushed out to March 13th. It seems like specifically because they want to sync the release with the the airing schedule
Of the
of like
anime.
of a related anime.
This is an unusual delay because most game releases are obviously delayed because of like production issues. They want to tighten up the game. They want to put more polish on this. This is them basically saying, okay, this game's already done and finished and ready to release, but since this game is set after the current anime, and the current anime is DanMachi 5, and there were production issues that arise from that during the airing of that anime in December. So there's still like 4 episodes to go, but they pushed back those episodes to its own like mini arc, like in like 2 to 3 weeks from now, I think. So it starts to air those last 4 episodes to finally conclude that anime season, and then this game takes place after that anime season. So it's basically trying to coincide with having the conclusion of that anime fully. So it's being delayed because the anime needs to finish up.
Look, this is Bushi Road here, guys. They're not gonna spend that delay time to improve the game. Come on, you crazy?
You know what?
Challenge is
It's
like,
fucked
this
up,
game's
but
gonna
also
suck no
fair.
matter what.
Bushi Road doesn't have a great track record, man. So I mean, I don't have high expectations for this game, but if it turns out to be an enjoyable experience, then I I definitely try out this game. Unfortunately, I'm one of those people that I actually do watch the anime of DanMachi with a friend, and I think throughout the 5 seasons, I think I only liked part 2 of season 4. So, everything
I
else,
dropped
I
the series in
don't really
season
like.
2, so I don't know what happens after that.
They
I
have
think
like
it's-
they actually have like a hardcore survival, like life and death situation arc, and it's like, and that was cool. And then they did after that, everything before and everything after was. I don't actually. I like some characters, but it's like overall, I'm just like, whatever. It acceptable enough, I guess, to watch mindlessly with a friend. That's my review of it overall.
I think the only thing I remember is like the first season. There was like one character that has like a giant bag behind her. Like she's
Yeah,
voiced by Mai Uchida, and there's like this one scene where she like emotionally breaks down, and cries over the main character. I think that's a very touching scene. It seals the deal that Mai Uchida is an awesome voice actress. But other than that, I don't remember anything of the series.
I mean, Sayori Hayami voices the best character in the show, so. But I might be a little biased, just a tiny bit. Anyway, yeah, the game's getting. It'll come out.
We have 2 releases in April, 2 on the same day, on April 24th. The first one, Yasha, Legends of the Demon Blade. It was originally supposed to release last year. It got delayed to March, and now it has a definitive date of April 24th. And alongside, they announced, they revealed a couple teaser videos showing a specific character and their theme song. And it'll be releasing on basically all consoles. I forgot this one's even targeted for Xbox Series. And there is a demo. I think we talked about this last time when the March window was announced. There is a demo available. Uh, I don't. Skype didn't say if it was on all platforms for the demo, but it is available at least on some of them.
Yeah, and they had like a Kickstarter as well that just wrapped up and seems to have been very successful. I'll give this game a try when it comes out. Sure. I mean, it looks
Yeah,
neat.
yeah. The previous post says the demo is at least available on Steam. I don't see any comment on console.
Mhm.
But yep, Yasha Legend Demon Blade, April 24th. Also on April 24th, as part of that, what do they call it? Xbox Developer Direct. They
Yeah.
had a section for Clair Obscur Expedition 33. We always knew it was this year at some point, but it will also be releasing on April 24th. And alongside the release date, we got a trailer for it. The trailer is pretty an overview, shows a lot of combat, shows some exploration, shows some kind of lighthearted characters. Like you have like a goofy Scottish golem that like swims and flies over the world map for you. And I don't know, it seems fun. A lot of people kind of seemed pretty high on the trailer and thought it looked really interesting. I saw some people saying that they're not really gelling with the character design as much. Uh, I
Kind of
saw some
glossed
people
over
compare.
it, but like probably the biggest announcement from that trailer is there's a world map, like a full world map.
So like the game looks really cool, and I really like how the game's looking. The way they presented this game, I'm not a big fan of because it kind of rides on that same energy of like we're trying to fix the genre. That a lot of
Yeah.
indie games try to like
It-
we're trying to fix the
I don't
JRPG
think
genre.
that's fair to them because there's a lot of reverence for
There-
those
there-
games of the past.
I'm just saying it rides that same energy. I even took out exact quotes of them saying like quote unquote refresh the genre, quote unquote gameplay that innovates in the classes that I really love. When we came to the world map, it's like a super rare feature that these days, according to the devs, a 3D navigable world map. And then saying, yes, we've got a world map. It's like, okay, that's fine. Like I said, it's not necessarily a bad thing that like, there's hundreds deciding to market the game.
And
that's
trying to be charitable, I like it's hard to know how much of this is coming from the publisher and how much is coming in from the developer because we saw the developers said like they grew up on
Yeah.
Persona and on Final Fantasy, and they're really eager to kind of make their name in that space. But the
I'm
publisher
rooting for
might,
this
and,
game. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
definitely rooting for this game. Like, I'm very interested. I like everything that they've shown of the game itself. It's like really cool that they introduce like this party member that you have that can basically they consume parts of other monsters that you beat, and they can turn into other monsters in combat, and that's really cool. They show out the skill trees and like all these passives and different ways you can like build these characters. Like that's really cool. The world map stuff, very cool. It's a very ambitious looking game. For
but you
sure.
are right that we have seen the not your grandpa's turn-based RPG. This is actually good.
Yeah,
It's like, well,
because
why
because
are
like
you making one?
because like when they talk about like games like or like new systems or innovative systems like when you attack you have to like press a time button to like get it perfect. Like okay, Shadow Hearts did this, like it's not a new concept. I can understand why a lot of people might think it's a new concept, but like these things have been done before. Um, So, but for me, like I said, because I've been exposed to that type of marketing and I played a lot of JRPGs already, it's just like, when marketing decides to go this direction, I'm like, I kind of roll my eyes just a little bit. But
Yeah, and that's totally valid.
it's cool. It's cool that, good release date. Hoping it does well. Hopefully the game turns out really well. It's cool that like there's even launch discount of like, hey, yeah, it's gonna be $45 with the launch of this game. All that. So that's cool.
And they've also said, it's a it's a $50 game. So it's a budget release in that sense. I know that has like negative connotation to it, but they've already addressed it and said like, this is our debut project. We're not trying to overscope this. This isn't going to be a 100-hour long epic, which I think a lot of people stood up and cheered, like more 30-hour, 20-hour RPGs,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
So,
People need to realize
So-
people have got lives, okay? It's like how do you make all that time to beat the game, right?
not only that. I do like kind of the clarity of saying like this is our debut project. We don't want to overscope it. We're gonna stick with something we can manage and make it as polished as we
Yeah.
can. I just like that, and because of that, we're gonna release it at a It's weird to think of $50 as a budget price, but nowadays it is. So I look at that and I'm nodding my head. It seems good. Obviously, we'll know for sure in late April. We kind of teed this up last week. We knew of a teaser, and we were expecting that this would be coming. Fu-gyu-dee. I'm sorry, I'm
Fu-gyu-dee.
stammering.
Fu-gyu-dee.
Fuga Melodies. Fuga Melodies of Steel 3 will be releasing on May 29th for all platforms, basically Xbox, PlayStation, PC. I guess not for Switch. No, it is for Switch.
It is for Switch. In fact, they're doing a physical
yeah.
like trilogy release, at least like
A-
in Japan.
Adam put Switch in the title, but not in the text body. But yes, okay. Fuga Melodies of Steel 3, May 29th on all platforms, PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, PC, both Steam and Epic. And then I didn't watch this, but I did see where is it like, oh, you don't have to play Fuga 1 or 2 in order to play 3.
I'm sorry,
like,
guys. I'm sorry. I know that companies keep saying this. I know why they keep saying it. They're lying to you. They're like,
Like
don't
Falco?
listen to them. Yeah.
What? But
And that's-
Kondo told me I don't have to play any of the Trails games before Cold Steel 3, okay? He told me I can start with Cold Steel 3. I trust Kondo.
But anyways, beyond just like the obvious, like pointing out that is a bullshit like statement, and people kind of generally understand that, even if those companies are gonna say it. I'm pretty excited for this. I liked Fuga 2, but like my one kind of complaint was that it was a bit too iterative, and I think a lot of people had the similar issue.
Yeah, like
Where it was
like in a vacuum, I think Fuga 2 is a better game than 1, but also coming right off of 1, it's like, wow, I kind of wish this was just a little bit more unique.
And it looks like that's exactly what they're doing with Fuga 3. Apparently it's as long as Fuga 1 and 2 combined, so thank fucking God they're switching things up. That would be a problem otherwise. But there's branching paths. Like there's literally like different story paths in this now. There's a lot more non-linearity. There's like an enhanced upgrade system for your tank. There's a bunch of stuff, and
The very first thing, the very first bullet point they have on their features list that they wanted to communicate to people is brand new battle
They
system.
say brand new, and it's like, I don't know if this is brand new. Updated.
it looks like there's a combo system, and the higher your combo goes, the more your like damage increases. And it looks like you have a better look at how the kids get into their, I forget the exact name for it, but like their fever state. You can see like there's like a bar that raises until they reach, and then there's like another thing. Yeah, there's definitely. I'm looking at the screenshots, and there's quite a few differences. It's also very funny how like a lot of the screenshots are showcasing they have in French, which is funny.
The thing that I like is the key art for this game just has the main dude like in space looking at you, and he's doing the gunbuster pose.
Yeah. Oh my God, I just realized, because it's the third game and this is going to be a lot longer, and presumably it's going to tie into the further like Little Tail Bronx universe. There's like, in one of the screenshots, there's like an event, and there's an option to open the Kimonopedia to like, I guess, look into information on each character. There's a fucking terms list now.
Oh boy. So yeah, they didn't announce. Oh yeah, they did announce release date for this, May 29.
Mhm.
I'm excited. Hopefully, they actually send out review code before launch this time. That was very unfortunate last time.
I forgot about the recent staff change, but wasn't I forgot it was the producer or director of this game recently left
the creative
CyberConnect 2
director
some
left.
months ago. Creative
The
director.
creative director left right before Fuga-2 came out 2 years ago, so it's been 2 years.
So
But
we'll see how this goes. Because that's a pretty big departure too for this.
yeah,
So
but it looks good. It looks interesting. So I'm like, obviously, I'm gonna play it. But yeah, looking forward to it.
Right now, the late May window seems fine. Just don't get too crowded.
It will get crowded.
I feel like it's
nah,
inevitable.
no one would ever.
Yeah, Switch 2 launch release, okay.
Yeah, right then.
This would be that'd be an interesting, funny thing that like if this somehow became a launch title for Switch 2.
I could see it because I would not be shocked if Nintendo wants to release it before their usual like June like big showcase.
Mm.
So like
Mhm.
it potentially being like a late May release, I think that's actually pretty plausible. So
And that kind of covers it for game related news. So we do have one last thing here at the end. The president of Nippon Ichi Software, Tetsuhisa Seko, did pass away the last week at only a far too young 55. He's been at NIS since 2002, and he was their president ever since 2023. So only president for the last few years, but has been with the company for decades. Has worked on both Disgaea and Phantom Brave. Unfortunately, has passed way too soon. And of course, right on the impending release of Phantom Brave, The Lost Hero, coming out literally next week worldwide. So obviously, not not as like prominent a figure as others, but still headed his company and a pretty major niche player in the JRPG space. And obviously, whenever you see someone at that age passing away, you like we could have had him for another several decades, and unfortunate just wasn't meant to be. So obviously, we hopefully see that Phantom Brave as a success. That Nippon Ichi can fill that those shoes as good as they can. But obviously, rest in peace to Mr. Tetsuhisa Seko from NIS.
Yeah, really, sad departure. Just everyone's getting older.
yeah, I
Yep.
gotta hope it. I gotta hope it wasn't stress because I know that NIS has been having a rough time of it the last couple years. It can't have been a very like fun position to be in.
Yeah, a lot of responsibilities. But yeah, yeah.
And obviously, we'll hopefully get the chance to talk about NIS's big early game, Phantom Brave, next week. It'll be coming out on the 30th. We're recording this on the 25th. Adam, who's covering that for us? I forget.
Nathan
I don't have
is,
the
but due to a
spreadsheet.
weird email issue, we got code late. So the review
okay.
embargo was already lifted, and there's reviews out there, but Nathan's still working on it.
Gotcha. Okay. And then Nathan's time zone. Well, I guess Nathan is our time zone, but works the night shift.
Yeah,
so
he's American, but he just is awake whenever, I guess.
Yeah. So we'll at least get to maybe follow up on the release of that game next week in some fashion, even if Nathan can't make the podcast. But obviously, rest in peace to Mr. Seko. For next week, next week is kind of in that calm before the storm. I know we use that saying probably way too frequently, but February 1st we'll be recording ahead of Kingdom Come 2 and all the other February releases. So I'm not 100% sure what exactly will be our headliner for the podcast next week, but you'll have to tune in and check it out once we get there. Obviously, you can check out the reviews on the website. Of course, Dynasty Warriors Origin, the written review, Enter Magnolia, Bloom in the Mist from Junior is up on the site. We also have the best RPGs on Xbox Game Pass, best RPGs on Steam Deck are also on RPG Site. You can find RPG Site on all the social media networks. Just search for RPG Site and you should be able to find us. Join our Discord, discord.gg/RPG Site. If you listen to this podcast on whatever service you listen to us on, or if you watch us on YouTube, leave a like, leave a thumbs up, leave a rating. We do love to see those. We do like to see the comments. And until you hear from us next time, stay safe, take care, We'll talk to you all next week.